Hey everyone, Dominic here with the Raving Hordes Game Club in Saskatoon. This time we've got 4,500 point game, Orc and Goblins versus the Dread Elves. The game type we played was encircle, and Orc and Goblins were the defender, with secure target as a secondary objective. Let's get into it. So a quick look at the deployment here. I've got Forest Goblin Raiders, Gargantula, a Git Launcher, common orcs with additional hand weapons. In the center there's a Iron Orc General on a chariot, unit of Iron Orcs with Iron Orc BSB, Cave Goblins with Cave Goblin Wizard Master Caster of Thaumaturgy, Forest Goblin King on a Scuttle Spider, Bow Orcs back here, Git Launcher, and Common Orc Boar Riders. For the Dread Elves, and this of course was after his Vanguard moves, he's got some Dark Raiders, Dark Raiders, Dark Raiders. Over here he has a unit of Dread Princes, Dread Spears, Bolt Thrower, Dread Spears, Bolt Thrower. In this line he's got a Kraken, a Raptor Chariot, a Kraken, a Raptor Chariot, a third Kraken, followed by a Captain on a Raptor Chariot as his general. And finally, another Bolt Thrower. So my opponent has no BSB and no magic. After a little while, Orc and Goblins just dropped to take first turn. Or actually, I think pretty much right off the start. So let's get started. These guys just move up along the flank. The Gargantula hides behind the hill from the Bolt Throwers for the first turn. On the other side, the Forest Goblin King moves up pretty aggressively to get a 15-inch charge range between him and the Bolt Thrower there. And these guys just try and position themselves in between the Git Launcher and the Dark Raiders. I know that they're probably going to dance around, but I prefer that to them charging. So the center line moves up, and the Iron Orc General on his chariot decides to take some cover behind the Common Orcs as well. We go into Magic phase. We do Bring the Pain on these guys, which he let go off, and then I tries to cause some wounds to them as well, but he dispelled it. But we go into shooting, and it didn't matter. Both units of Bow Orcs, as well as the Git Launcher on this hill, open up and wipe them out to a man. Over here, the Forest Goblins shoot, knock off one, and the other Git Launcher fires at his Bolt Thrower there and causes 3 wounds. So that's what the table looks like, starting for turn 1 for the Dread Elves. So with nowhere really to go, these guys just rip around and get ready to take some shots at the Git Launcher. These guys do the same thing on the far flank. And the rest of his lines pretty much kind of stay put, more or less. He goes into shooting. This Bolt Thrower takes a multi-shot at the Goblins. Knock off 4 out of the 5. And I surprisingly passed the leadership check to stick around. He shoots the Git Launcher, causes 2 wounds. And shoots over here, but doesn't cause any wounds. In the center there, this Bolt Thrower shoots multi-shot, caused 2 wounds, which are armor saved, and this one takes a single shot and hits, but failed to wound by rolling a 1, which is rather fortunate for me. And that's pretty much it for turn 1 for the Dread Elves. Yeah. So start of this turn, the Iron Orc General declares that charge against the Dark Raiders, and the Forest Goblin declares the charge against his Bolt Thrower. He makes it in, but he actually failed. These guys move up, trying to get into range. I think they both marched. And that's pretty much it. The Gargantula comes over here. The last remaining spider hopes to do some thrown weapons at this Bolt Thrower to take off the last wound. We go into Magic phase, and We do Trial of Faith, try and cause a single wound. He lets it go off, and I think I did cause a wound. And then we did Smite the Unbeliever to lower these guys' armor penetration and strength, I believe. Didn't go off. And I think I tried another spell here. Just to cause multiple wounds. The d6 plus 1, d6 plus 1. I rolled really low for the strength, so it didn't cause any wounds. We go into shooting. The Git launcher on the hill takes out 3 out of 4. They pass their panic check. Over here, he fires but misses. So the other Git launcher decides to target it to get it off. Causes the wound. Combat wipes out the Raiders, no problem. Just kind of pivots on the spot. And that's what the table looks like as we go into turn 2 for Dread Elves. So he moves up these Raiders on the flank. The Dread Princes are slowly coming up the side here. And everything else just kind of stayed put. He does some shooting with crossbow shots, wipes out this last Raider. And this time does the single shot for the first one. Hits, fails to wound again, causes nothing there. And this one, this time, actually does hit, wounds, but only rolled a 1. So, over here, he shot, caused 1 wound. And that's, I think these chariots as well are firing crossbows at the common orcs, caused 2 wounds there. That's pretty much it. As we go into turn 3 for Orc and Goblins. So, start of this turn, the Forest Goblin King goes into the Bolt Thrower and makes it. The Gargantula comes up on this side of the building, and the Iron Orc comes up on the hill there, just to get in good charge range, rerollable down a hill if he decides to actually come out and try and get to this unit. The Iron Orcs continue to edge up, but I'm still keeping a fairly good distance in between them and the chariots there. Continuing on, we go into magic. We do Trial of Faith on this Bolt Thrower. He lets it go off. I think we tied for roll. Then we do Hand of Heaven. And I did the big version of it. And it went off. And this is where the game really turns around here all of a sudden for the Dread Elves. So this thing gets destroyed with the spell, which of course causes the panic check on the Dread Spears and the Kraken. To start out, the Dread Spears pass the panic check. Fortunately, the Kraken does not. And if I'm not mistaken, he flees from the closest enemy unit, which is over here. And I'm just going to go back to this picture here so you can see. So that being said, he flees, and he flees through all of this stuff, through the building, through the Gargantula, and right off the table. But it gets worse. So everything over here needs to take panic checks. This chariot passes. The first Kraken fails, and the closest enemy unit is that Gargantula over here. So he flees this direction. This chariot passes. This Kraken fails. Again, closest one is a Gargantula. He flees through all this. And his prince on the Raptor chariot passes. So this one here, like I said, this thing got destroyed. This goes off the board. This Kraken panics, and he goes through this stuff here, and he ended up on the other side of these spheres, which of course causes a panic on those spears. They take a panic test and fail, fleeing this way away from the Forest Goblin King. So at the end of all of that fleeing, they're over here, and his lines are looking all of a sudden kind of scattered there. Continue on with magic. We do Smite the Unbeliever on those Dread Spears, lowering their resilience. I just went for the random one. And then we did try to do some shooting. Didn't hit with the Git launchers this time. We go into combat. He does another wound back to me, but I wipe him out, which of course, again, causes a panic on these Dread Spears, and they flee back through that line of stuff, through the building, through the Gargantula, and off the table. So just a massive, massive stroke of bad luck for my opponent. It's a lot of leadership checks to fail all in a row. So there's that. The Goblin King just pivots on the spot to face this side, and we go into turn 3 for the Dread Elves. So start here. This guy declares a charge. Last remaining Dread Dark Rider charges. Goes with rallies. This Hydra, or this Kraken, sorry, rallies. This one does not. Flees to the other side. The Dread Spears don't rally, and they flee the other side of the Kraken. And that's kind of what that looks like there. The Dread Princes continue to move up. They want to make sure they get the charge, so they're keeping some distance between. Over here, he tightens up his line again. And just goes into shooting, does some shots, knocks off a couple more wounds on the common orcs. Over here, we do this combat. He wins, but again, I surprisingly pass my break check. So now I've got these bow orcs that can come in and help support. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We go into turn 4 for Orc and Goblins. These guys come in. And over here, I declare the War Cry this turn as well. So these guys declare a charge against the Kraken. They make it in. This guy declared a charge against that fleeing Kraken that's over here. He flees off the board. And I didn't have the distance to declare a charge over here. And these guys are out of my arc of sight now, so he just fails charge. The Iron Orcs make it in against their Kraken. These guys make it in. And these guys, they had the movement with the +1 movement, or +2 advance from the Warcry. I measured it out to get beyond these guys' arc, but failed the march check over here. So we just move up, getting closer to them. I figure if they'll charge, I'll just flee, and hopefully he'll be too far away to redirect into anything else. We go into magic phase. Yeah, we cast the Bring the Pain, which he stopped, and then we got off the, I believe it's Smite the Unbeliever, and lowered that guy's resilience. And then we went into to shooting. The one Git launcher fired over here at his general and missed. That's pretty much it for shooting because these guys marched. And yeah, combat, as you can see, we wipe out the Kraken and just pivot on the spot to face the chariots. Over here, we take care of that last Dark Raider as well and pivot on the spot. This distance between here and here, I think it's like an 18-inch movement, so fairly good. Yeah, this is the start of Dread Elves, turn 4. So here, the Dread Princes declare a charge, which we flee, and then of course both those chariots come into the Iron Orcs. His general decides to back up and take some cover behind the building, and that's pretty much it. He took some crossbow shots here. I don't think he caused any more wounds. We go into this combat. He causes a bunch of wounds with impact hits. I opt for great weapons and decimate the one chariot and put one wound on the other one. Ended up in a complete draw, I believe, after the dust was settled. And I just reform on the spot to get to 5 wide instead of 6. Starting turn 4, actually I think this is turn 5. Starting at turn 5 for the Orc and Goblins, Borks march down the hill. These guys rally, and I didn't quite position these guys right on their rally check. But the king comes up my plan here was to hopefully, if I can hold here, we can get some guys on this, the flanks to help support. We go into magic. Actually, there was another move here. The goblin character came out of the unit over here, I believe this turn, and the goblins continued, turned around and started headed towards this objective. We go into magic phase. We did Hand of Heaven, which I think caused a single wound. And then we go into shooting, and we cause 2 more wounds with the Git launchers. We go into this combat. We wipe out the chariot, no problem. Which, actually, looking back, I think it's my next turn that the character comes out. Yeah, wipe out the chariot, pivot in the spot to face the last chariot. And over here, turn 5 for Dread Elves. The princes come in. I hold. His captain goes against this Gargantula, and the Dread Spears that had rallied previously start marching towards the center objective. We go into this combat. He does a bunch of damage, but just misses. I've got 5 guys there to remain steadfast, and I passed the check, luckily. So we're fighting that one out. And then I don't think I took a picture of it here, but this one, really surprising. He rolled max impact hits, caused 5 wounds with the impacts. The captain puts on another one, and then the 2 riders on top put on the last 2 remaining wounds. So killed me before I even got the swung, which I thought was rather impressive. So yeah, we go into turn 6 for Orc and Goblins. I said I didn't quite position these guys right to declare a charge here. So just the king goes in. These guys just march past. And take a picture of it. After this one, he just pivoted to face my general. My turn. My general charges his, as do the Iron Orcs that are over here. The general makes it in, but the Iron Orcs fail. We go into the magic phase. We cast Bring a Pain on his general, and that's pretty much it for magic. It goes off. Go into shooting. Didn't decide to shoot because I can't really see his Dread Spears anyway. It won't really do much, even if I do, so I didn't want to risk anything. Combat. We charge in, kind of whiff the damage a little bit. He does 5 wounds with the standard back to me. I did, I think, what did I do? 4 wounds, a standard, a charge, and a flank. I think that makes sense. Either way, we won by 1 point up here, and he broke and fled, and the goblin ran him down. My general versus his general, I didn't cause a single wound with impact hits. He does his attacks back, also doesn't wound me, and I opted for a great weapon, 4 attacks, 4 hits, 4 wounds, and Bob's your uncle. So we just wipe out his general right there and pivot on the spot. That's pretty much it for the game. His turn 6, he's got the Dread Spears left, but they can't get anywhere close enough to get within this objective range. So that's where we call it. Do up the points. It's a 17-3 for the Orc and Goblins, with them also capturing the secondary objective. So it turns into a 20-0. Really good game. Rather unfortunate luck for my opponent with that many failed checks, but maybe someday we'll get a BSB back in that army for him, and things like that won't happen so much. Hope you guys enjoy the battle. Stay tuned for the next one.